Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Today is going to be pretty much Russia downbeat view because Russia is receiving blow after blow after blow, coming both from the President Zelensky visit over in Europe, also looking down at their economy and oil prices, and more importantly, from the general push from the United States. It's not looking good for them, so let's jump in. Russia is having major issues with math. It's not adding up. As we all know, Ukrainian strikes against the Russian oil refining infrastructure has caused major issues for the dictator states, to an extent that gasoline prices in Russia have skyrocketed, and more than that, certain regions have reported that there is just no gasoline available, period, on certain gas stations. It was a question whether or not this will continue pressuring Russia. And Russia found a solution. They just decided to purchase gasoline from the outside states, turning itself from an exporter state to an importer state. Or to put it simply, they decided to spend money to get this product on the market instead of receiving money because you have a surplus of said product. The trade-off to that is that Russia was expected to, instead of refining the oil into its products, to just sell more crude oil to the world's markets. Unfortunately for Russia, Ukrainians had something to say about this by striking some of the oil export terminals, creating major risks for anyone that is expecting to purchase and receive oil from Russia. And additionally, United States imposed sanctions following the sanctions that were imposed by the European Union to put additional pressure on the major importing countries from Russia, such as China or India, which absolutely hammered down the price of oil. It is so much more down last week that it hit even the lowest point of $36.61 per barrel of Russian crude oil. To underscore how bad it is, Russian budget is extremely dependent on oil revenues. About 40% of it is dependent on it. And the price that they're budgeting to even out their expenses over the year is $56 a barrel of oil. So when we're talking that Russian oil is hitting actual prices of $36 per barrel of oil, that is $20 less per barrel than what is budgeted inside of the Russian estimates. That is not a hole in the budget. That is Grand Canyon. And especially because we heard a week ago of Marco Rubio talking what will US do with the sanctions on Russia, and he specifically outlined that potentially there will not be a lot of new sanctions, but something that I was literally praying for to happen is that they will be looking to enforce existing sanctions, and they will go after the third countries, such as importers in China and India, and more importantly, after the Russian shadow fleet, because it doesn't matter who is buying your oil if there is no transport for that oil available. Long story short, if this will hold on for a notable amount of time, something like a year, then this is pretty much an extinction level event for Russia, especially because Ukraine is not planning on stopping anytime soon. But we are only starting talking about the bad news for Russia. President Zelensky has been on a big European trip right now. He has been in Greece, now he has been in Spain and France. And in France, they've signed an amazing contracts with the help of French President Emmanuel Macron. This is very important because, as you know, I am a capitalist, and I truly believe that salvation for Ukraine comes when we got entangled into capital relationships. I believe all of this help for nothing. It creates unhealthy relationships in between countries and states, that population inside of our countries start getting tired, that we shouldn't help Ukraine, and things like this. Whereas if we have actual contractual agreements where it's a win-win scenario, so to say, then I think it's much harder to strike down by the political opposition or by just generally presenting it to the people. And most importantly, it's boosting everyone's defense capabilities. President Zelensky and Macron signed major important contracts. One for Ukraine to purchase up to 2035 100 absolutely new Rafale jets. These jets are much better than Mirage jets that Ukraine is already using. They are very good generation so far. I wouldn't call them generation 5. It's more so 4.5. But considering whatever Russia is having, it is still more than good enough. Ukraine is definitely growing their air power capabilities, and over the next couple of years, I will definitely expect to see that Ukraine will start dominating some of the skies over first Ukraine and then over the front lines where Russia is. Despite the Russian ability to shut down certain jets, Ukrainian innovation, together with now expanded park of machines, is gonna create great results for Ukraine. Secondly, the contract to deliver to Ukraine 8 SAMP-T air defense systems. And the key word here is systems, because very often journalists, when are reporting on deliveries to Ukraine, are confusing systems with system elements, because SAMP-T here is a system, but in that system they have many elements, including radars, the command stations, or for example, it also contains 6 launchers. And when sometimes they were talking about Patriot deliveries to Ukraine, they would say someone will deliver 3 Patriot systems, but what is actually meant that there will be 3 elements from the Patriot systems delivered to Ukraine, aka 3 launchers. In this contract, what is meant is the actual systems. So each of this, of 8, contains 6 launcher vehicles. And talking about President Zelensky's visit to Greece, it is worth noting that President Zelensky has signed an agreement with Greece to jointly produce maritime drones. And Greece is obviously a maritime nation, so they have a lot of industry capabilities and a lot of experiences in specifically building vessels. So this will most definitely come as a big boost to Ukraine and further solidifying its control over the whole Black Sea. As you might know, Russia entered this war thinking that they have the full water dominance in the Black Sea, yet Ukraine, by developing their drone technology, have completely crushed the Russian fleet and is now almost in full control of majority of the sea. The only last step that Ukraine still needs is to get to the Russian shipyards and completely obliterate them. And really good news coming from United States, where Trump's administration and Donald Trump specifically have outlined and greenlit the general push towards more sanctions on Russia. Now, the bill itself, I don't think is very relevant. I do not think that it's gonna do much of anything because, to be honest, the bill is aiming to give President Trump powers that he technically already have. So, because in initial reading, the bill was supposed to impose sanctions on the Russian partners despite Donald Trump, but it kind of morphed now that it's going to be Trump that's going to have the final say anyway, so the bill itself doesn't really matter. But what matters is something that I must say that I was wrong about. I stated that because initial push from the Trump's administration was to isolate the United States, I was seeing a lot of the countries trying to emancipate themselves, and United States would diminish their positions. What I was not expecting is how much of a cucks the rest of the world will be. And because of that, I need to say sorry, because no nation, to be honest, really outgrew the US influence on the world. Despite the fact that we definitely should, and I want to advocate that we should have more equal partnership between United States and Europe, so far inside of Europe, everyone is just really looking down the throat of what is coming out of the mouth from any president of United States. So Donald Trump, by applying more strict rhetoric to Russia, is actually encouraging a lot of these movements inside of Europe as well. The countries in Europe are still discovering that Russia is waging war against them. In Europe, in Poland specifically, the railways were blown up in couple of places, specifically the railways leading towards Ukrainian border. And I mean, this is already active sabotage. The problem is that the governments and representatives of the governments inside Poland, while reacting and stating we have a terrorist activity levels heightened, we see Russia preparing to war with us, they're still defaulting on the rhetoric that this is supposedly just hybrid warfare, that is Russia fighting against us. I must underscore once again that Russian doctrine does not discriminate between whether it's a regular warfare or a hybrid warfare. So not only there are long-range drones flying over Poland, not only Russia and Belarus are sending in migrant waves over the border with Belarus, now there is also sabotage groups that are moving around the country and blowing up railway tracks. This is the act of war. And we have some very unsettling developments from the Russian side. The defense intelligence reports that Russia is developing a guided bomb with a range of up to 400 kilometers. Over the last couple of years, Russia has improved their aviation bombs, very destructive pieces of equipment that beforehand they could only drop from planes when the planes would fly over the specific targets. These bombs are used to level cities. And when I say level, I mean erasing the cities from existence, like Mariupol was. Mariupol received amount of bombs that could be compared to multiple nuclear explosions. Yet now Russia is developing aviation bombs that will not need for the airplanes to fly over the specific targets. They can be launched from quite respectable 400-kilometer range, essentially creating a very deadly weapon. It's not a precise weapon. It's a weapon of mass destruction. And I already can hear like all of these nerds coming as like, actually, it's not a weapon of mass destruction because it's a very special category. It doesn't matter. If Russia is able to launch hundreds of these per day and they do damage that is fully comparable to like a weapons of mass destruction, doesn't matter if it's just one warhead that lands and erases the city, or Russia launches non-stop barrage of many of warheads and achieves the same goal, indiscriminately destroying the city. For me, the answer is very, very clear. But we also have some pretty good news from the front line. The Russian incursion in Novopavlivka that we talked about yesterday with regards to Russian forces making this maneuver and driving into the settlement, right now the reports are that it has been completely cleared out. Russian armor has been burned out, and Ukrainians even showed videos of taking Russian soldiers captives. More good news is coming from the EU. European Commission President is presenting 3 different options for financing Ukraine in case it is not possible to convince Belgium to release the Russian frozen assets. By this point, Belgium is the only country that is resisting this move, despite the fact that there's been proposals from Norway and other countries. My hope is obviously that they will come to the senses and release the assets. Unfortunately, until then, I'm at least happy that there are other options that are already being evaluated, and one way or another, Ukraine will get the funds to fight further. And finally, this. From time to time, I get messages that are stating that my delivery style and my videos are very hard to listen to on a constant basis. That it feels like I'm just hammering something down their throat and it's just impossible to continue being subscribed and listen to my strong opinions. Well, it is because I care. And I'm really trying hard to mellow it out because very often the messages and views that I'm seeing, I just see how not enough we are doing and not enough we are grasping the situation we are in. So this here is a very clear example of what I'm talking about. We all know, hopefully here, how Ukrainian war is looking like right now. And it talks about an event that happened in Poland where there were training exercises with NATO countries doing various types of exercises, and that included participation of Ukrainian armed forces troops. And what happened is there was an exercise where infantry fighting vehicles were supposed to cross the water body. And Ukrainians said, well, sure, let's do it. That's fine. And they had some Mavic drones with them, like a simple one. This is not even a specialized scouting drone. This is just one of the most common drones that Ukrainians are using. And they decided to use these Mavic drones. And after the first attempt at the exercise, the instructor that was running this exercise stopped the whole exercise, approached the Ukrainian group and stated, hey guys, can we remove the Mavics? Otherwise, it's kind of unfair. You're finding the NATO guys too fast. This is very not good. Ukrainians got really, really angry and responded harshly. And it says, like, if the drones are removed, then it will be no longer a modern war. It will be more like a reconstruction attempt of 2010s. So we're basically down a decade. And for me, this is incredible. This shows just how far we are behind from the modern battlefield, that we consider that we still can do these maneuvers that are written in our quote-unquote NATO playbooks, cross the water body without drones spotting you, evac a wounded soldier within 40 minutes, which is impossible because drones are literally everywhere. Try to walk around unnoticeably, really unrealistic. That right now, modern war requires a lot more deception, requires to be a lot more hidden than that. And the whole playbook that we're having is more akin to the Second World War rather than something out of the modern battle theater in Ukraine. Such as, for example, that a lot of NATO soldiers are still being trained to use paper maps rather than using digital options like tablets and mobile devices. Not being able to adapt to the modern battlefield is the doom of us all. But in the meantime, we're doing whatever we can. And we started our mega super fundraiser that will run potentially for a long time, but my hopes are we're gonna do as much as we can. And the start was pretty good. Over the last 24 hours, a little bit less, we already were able to fundraise 18,000 euros. Insanely strong start. Thank you so much for this, guys. Support the fundraiser if you can. This is going to be our contribution to Ukrainian Armed Forces. We're going to do as much as possible on this channel with your support, and we make sure that Ukrainians will hear about this. Support Ukraine, trust in Ukrainian Armed Forces. I love you. Slava Ukraini. And because today is 18th of November, Dievs svētī Latviju.
Reiz bija bunkurs 13, kur veči dzīvoja, kad granātu tur iemeta, tad sūdi pajukam. Atskan sprādziens un nobīgs tas pats velns, kur agrāk bunkurs stāvēja, tur paliek caurums nāk.